Hey everyone, it's Arfan, and I am back with another expert interview for the Successful Lead Generating Coaches Show. And I have someone very special, and I say that all my guests have been special, but this one is a little bit closer to me. And the reason why is because I have Laura Naiser. Laura Naiser was my personal mindset coach, and I met Laura at the beginning of my journey and have worked with her in different capacities along the way. So it's someone that I am, I will shout out the rooftop for her services and what she does. She is a mindset coach, but a mindset coach for entrepreneurs. So, for most of you listening on a podcast or watching this on YouTube, you are an entrepreneur and you may be in the early phases or in the later phases, wherever you are, mindset is super important. And I have one of the most, I would probably say, respected mindset coaches I know personally. So Laura, thank you so much for being here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Arfan. That was a very sweet introduction.
Yeah, of course, of course. So we are going to dive into some talks about mindset, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I introduce you, but I would love to flip it over you to kind of give us just tell us a little bit about your journey into mindset coaches and what led you to kind of specifically focus on entrepreneurs.
Right. Yeah, that was kind of a long and winding journey. I'll give you the in a nutshell version. I had worked in business, had done public relations, marketing, research stuff in the commercial real estate industry for a while, then kind of found my way into being director of discipleship at a 4,000 member church. And
Ooh.
I had taught Bible study for like 20 years and ended up in that role for a few years. And when I ended up leaving that, I had small kids at the time, and that wasn't a good
Mm-hmm.
fit for me with small kids to work 60 hours a week. And so I was trying to figure out like, what do I want to do? Well, back then, because that was like in 2008, and coaching was not like this kind of coaching was just not a thing back then. So
Mm-hmm.
unless you were like a C-suite executive and you had an executive coach, maybe that was a thing. But I was always having people reach out to me like, hey, I'd like to talk a problem over with you or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time it came out of my Bible study classes. And around 2018, I heard Brooke Castillo on Amy Porterfield's podcast. And I was like, oh, that's what I am. Like I'm a coach. Like that's
Yeah.
what it is. And so I went through her certification training. And when I came out of that, I just was doing general life coaching, especially around like healthy boundaries and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, my clientele was just mostly entrepreneurs. I was meeting people, all of my business was coming through referral, word of mouth, people I knew and stuff. And
Mm.
so I was in all these groups with entrepreneurs trying to learn how to do my business. And I loved working with the entrepreneurs. And I really, over time, started to see my sweet spot was working with the more established entrepreneurs, people who were already making five figures,
Mm-hmm.
maybe early six figures in their business, and were wanting to grow their business to like seven figures and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
And those were the people that I just found like that was my sweet spot, working with those people. Because they knew this is when they came to me, they knew they needed mindset help. They weren't looking for how to build a funnel and how to write their elevator pitch and stuff like that. And so yeah, I just love watching when you can help someone who is a high achiever, they're very gifted at what they do, but they are successful, but that success is coming at a cost to
Mm-hmm.
their health, their enjoyment of their business, the ability to enjoy their free time, because they lack a certain skill set around their thinking, emotions, and how to manage their behavior better without just relying on willpower and white knuckling their way through things.
Yeah.
And so it's just so fun to watch them flourish and grow and surpass, all the things that they just were like, wow, I never thought this was going to be possible, or I thought it was going to take a lot longer, and see them make those changes really fast. So that's what I love about it.
Yeah, no, I
I
love
don't
that.
know
I
if I
love your
answered the exact question you
oh,
asked,
more than it's
but
perfect. It's perfect. So I love your journey, especially how it, just naturally like just you got placed in the right spot where you needed
right.
to be, where your skills were. And it's one of those things. And I'm glad you really said that, those who are established and successful, despite that, there are still mindset things going on that's
Right.
preventing them from really flourishing and really doing like really feeling that true like that happiness and joy that they really want to feel inside, because it's often unsaid, and sometimes we could
Hmm.
look at someone and think like, wow, they're doing really amazing in their business, they're generating 6 7 figures, I want to be like them, but we don't know what the silent stuff is, the things that's
Yes.
going on inside, and sometimes it's like you may not want to actually be like them. You may want their
Yeah.
success or something like that, but in terms of what's going on, and I'm super happy we're having this conversation because I know we're going to talk about some of the essential mindset shifts that every entrepreneur really needs to overcome, and the big things we're going to talk about is on self-doubt and really imposter syndrome.
Hmm.
And what I've discovered in talking to entrepreneurs at a deeper level too is that self-doubt and imposter syndrome hits us at many levels. Whether you're
Yeah.
someone who's new, probably at a greater level because you're kind of looking at everyone else already having the success and thinking, okay, who am I? The self-doubt imposter comes in. But even those at a high level, it starts coming in more as you peel back the layers. There's
Hmm.
different things that come up. So I want to ask you, right? So you've been working with entrepreneurs for a number of years now. You've had your own entrepreneur journey for many years as well. And just your experience, like what are the most common mindset challenges that entrepreneurs face? And you can
Yeah.
probably tell us what kind of shifts also to work in here.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that the top ones that I see entrepreneurs experience and struggle with, there's scarcity, and that might
Mm,
be scarcity around time, money, energy, just various things, but scarcity mindset issues, um, issues around that really boil down to a lack of healthy boundaries, a lack of skills around healthy boundaries, understanding that. So that may show up in people pleasing, but it also might show up in micromanaging or trying to control, like
oh,
over
really?
control people. That really can come out. That can come out in various ways. I was working with a client recently where it showed up. It looked like she had hired someone, a contractor. They had agreed on what they were going to do and had their little contract and all of that spelled out. And then the
Mm,
contractor just totally dropped the ball and did not follow
mm,
through. And because she was people pleasing the contractor, she wasn't looking out for her best interest.
mm,
And or people will take on bad fit clients because they don't know how to say this isn't going to be a good fit for us in a
yeah.
gracious, loving, kind way. And so they'll end up like saddling themselves with things that drag down their business, because they're trying to people please. But the controlling side can show up like, especially with entrepreneurs who are just starting to bring on team members or hiring contractors and things like that,
Mhm.
and they might be like micromanaging and over controlling and not letting go of things that they really need to entrust their team with. And so, or they're not setting appropriate expectations for their team, things like that.
Mm,
So scarcity, lack of healthy boundaries, imposter syndrome is a really big one, and that shows up different. There's different flavors of it. Like a newbie entrepreneur is going to have one flavor of it, but the more established entrepreneur,
yeah.
they're like getting opportunities to speak on bigger stages, be it some bigger conferences or on bigger podcasts.
Mhm.
And imposter syndrome often will sneak back in at that stage. And it looks a little different, it shows up a little different, but it can
Mhm.
be really debilitating and trip those really successful, high
Yeah.
achieving entrepreneurs up at that phase.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So
I
I would
love.
say those are probably the biggest ones that I see coming up with that.
Gotcha. That's great for you to break that down for us, especially like the describing it as a different flavor, because that really resonates in terms of, okay, well, I'm here right now and I'm feeling this way, and just to kind of think about, oh, if I am speaking on a stage, or even a speaker who speaks on a stage of 50 people and then over 20,000, there's different feelings that
Yes.
will come up
Yeah.
in that area, or being on a podcast. So, um, let's talk a little bit about imposter syndrome for a second, right? So,
Yeah.
first is, how do you define imposter syndrome, and why do you think it's such a big thing amongst entrepreneurs?
Yeah, really, imposter syndrome is it's a fancy word for self-doubt, And
Mm,
so it's where someone who is really qualified, like objectively qualified to do what they're doing, but their own self-doubt uh, is getting in the way of them showing up the way they actually know they can, and
mm,
they'll kind of sabotage themselves with letting the doubts run wild and create a bunch of chaos for them. And
okay.
so really it shows up, it might look like, um, who am I to be on this stage with XYZ other experts,
Mm-hmm.
it also may look like they'll start playing smaller than they're capable of. They may hide instead of getting out there and pursuing those opportunities that they really
Yeah.
want and are qualified to do, but they're afraid, they're
Mm,
and a lot of times it's really something that shows up rooted in the way the person sees themselves, because they can have a
mm,
lot of other people telling them how amazing they are and how qualified they are. They'll get people inviting them to come do things, but their relationship with themselves is rocky. And so they usually have a
yeah.
lot of negative self-talk. They're usually the people I work with who struggle a lot with imposter syndrome, they've never really been taught how to manage their emotions in a
Mm,
practical way. So they just try and shove them down and take action over the top of all that self-doubt. And then they end up like really exhausted and burned out. And so I can kind of, we want to help them understand and see some of the like thought errors that are happening,
mm-hmm.
give them the tools and the skills that they need to be able to better regulate themselves, better kind of catch things and shift and reframe into something that's more useful, but that also feels really believable to them.
Yes.
And, just basically set them up to be able to go out and perform at their best and, really fulfill their potential.
Absolutely. So I was waiting for you to say tools, because again, you were my personal mindset
Yep.
coach, and I worked with you for a number of months, and it's one of those things where I could speak to a testament to your skills and abilities, because what I've learned working with you, I use that sometimes on almost a daily basis. A lot
Yep.
of things I've overcome, but they do come up sometimes in different flavors. But
Yep.
it's instantly recognized, and I know exactly what to do, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like sometimes, like what you're describing, that what really was coming up for me is that, and you can correct me, you can kind of give me your opinion on here, but I
Mm-hmm.
feel like when this self-doubt comes up, right, when imposter syndrome comes up and we hit a certain layer of success, it almost, we don't know what to deal with that as exactly this, a certain layer of self-sabotage comes in
Right.
that can want to bring us down. Do you find that to
Mm-hmm.
be like something that's common
100%.
amongst entrepreneurs?
Yes. That's like across the board. That's what nobody's a special unicorn around imposter syndrome. Like, and it isn't a reflection on like that you're not good enough. Like that's how you're feeling. People who come to me with this, they feel like something's wrong with me. Like I'm
Mm,
deficient in something that's making me not good enough to be on the stage with those other experts or whatever.
yeah.
And but when we can, when I work with them and I show them, no, you just have a human brain, it's operating just like human brains are supposed to, and
Yeah.
really kind of unpack it with them, the shame, they can drop all the shame around. And really that's true for all of these like mindset traps,
Hmm.
whether it's perfectionism, procrastination, scarcity, whatever, whatever. um, there can be a lot of shame because I'm working with really high achieving successful people, and
Hmm.
our society has a lot of stigma around, like, well, you should just be able to show up and do it, and you shouldn't have all of
Yeah.
these, self-doubts, and you shouldn't be procrastinating and all of that stuff. There's a lot of shame in our cultural conditioning, especially for
Yeah.
really successful, high achieving people. And so that's one of the keys to getting out of these mindset traps is you've got to have a safe space. I always describe it as grace and truth. You've got to be in a place where there's enough grace
Hmm.
for you to be human and struggle, but so that you can put all the cards on the table and get the truth about what's happening and really find your way out of it. And so if you otherwise the shame will keep you hiding and struggling and burning out.
Yes. Yes, yes. And you've given me some great tools to be able to overcome that. So let's dive a little bit into this, right? So imposter syndrome really translates to self-doubt. It's one and the same. The language can be used
Yeah.
interchangeably. It means the same essentially. What are like in your opinion, what are like the three top essential mindset shifts that, a new entrepreneur or a current entrepreneur need to make to overcome the self-doubt?
Yeah. The reframes, and this is where I'm a little different than a lot of mindset coaches I've noticed. um, Reframes, a lot of time people will associate mindset, like they're expecting me to give you a list of affirmations to say.
Hmm. Hmm.
And as you know, I'm not a big fan of that approach because affirmations are great if you have the right one, if you have one that's
Yes.
right for you. If you're just, downloading, oh, my top 20 affirmations for entrepreneurs off the internet somewhere,
Yeah.
you're probably practicing some thoughts that you really don't believe. And I always like to start with this because I think this is crucial for us to have an effective reframe, or what I
Hmm.
call a back pocket thought, a new thought that you can just keep in your metaphorical back pocket. And when you
Hmm.
catch your brain offering you the old unhelpful thoughts, you can just pull your back pocket thought out and pivot to it. And it'll cultivate a better emotional state that drives you to follow through with the actions that are aligned with your goals.
Mm.
So the first thing we've got to do is we've got to find out, what is your belief that's tripping you up? What is that unhelpful, limiting belief or thought error that is tripping you up? And in a lot of cases, that's going to be something like, I'm not good enough, or I don't belong here, or, I should be farther along than I am, or better than I am.
Who am
And
I?
so, yeah, so when we can find what your brain is actually up to, then we can craft a back pocket thought that's going to be most effective for you. And it won't just be some generic all purpose thing. We'll
Hmm.
craft it. And one of the easiest ways to find that, if you're trying to do this on your own, is to just try on the opposite of what you're currently thinking. So if it's I'm not good enough, then I'm good enough. I'm
Yeah.
well qualified to be here. And you've got to try that on and check in and see, do you believe it, or does your brain back talk you on that? Like, does it go, no, I'm not? Because
Hmm.
if you kind of can try on the affirmation or back pocket thought and you hear your brain go, nope, that's not true, then don't practice that, because all you'll be doing is practicing your old unhelpful thought because
Ah,
you'll practice what your brain is back talking instead of the affirmation. The last word is the winner. So whatever is the last word on it is what cultivates your emotional state. So if you try and practice, I'm the best speaker ever, and you don't believe that, you're really only going to practice your insecurity thought, and you'll feel insecure. So that's the first tip I always like to give people is we got to find out what's really going on with you, and then create a believable thought that creates a better emotional state that puts you more aligned to take the action you need to be taking in that, go after and pitch the bigger speaking opportunities or whatever it might be.
yeah.
And then I would say the other thing that is helpful is set some realistic expectations for you. Like begin to, and one of the most helpful things that you can do is to begin to be in a practice of noticing, acknowledging, and celebrating your wins, no matter how little they are. But like every day, finding something that you're proud of yourself for, noticing when if you have a sales call with someone and you close that sales call, or you really like how you showed up on the sales call, even if it was a no, you gotta like practice noticing that, acknowledging it so that you can internalize that. Most of the people who struggle with imposter syndrome have a real hard time accepting compliments, or even when they might have like a great launch and they will not take any time at all to really sit with that and notice how they created that result. And so they never internalize it. And that leads them to think, oh, it was just luck, or I was in the right place at the right time. And they like bat away the belief that they created that in a way that lets them
Wow.
own it. And that is a recipe for imposter syndrome. And then I said, setting realistic expectations for yourself. This is different from playing small, but a lot of people with imposter syndrome have perfectionist tendencies. And so they will set these outrageous, superhuman expectations for themselves, which then just kind of sets them up for disappointment. And then they use not hitting this ridiculous perfection standard as evidence that they're not good enough. And so
Wow.
a lot of the times that's where I'll kind of like see when I'm working with a client, we'll talk about their expectations, let's say for a launch or for their speaking engagement or something like that. And I'll see that they're basically setting themselves up to where the only way they can feel like they did good enough was to like be superhuman, that, the best speaker in the world could not pull
Yeah.
off what they're expecting of themselves. And so we've got to make room in there for them to have more realistic expectations so that they're not overworking and just like working themselves to death to hit these unrealistic expectations, and then use the almost inevitable outcome of missing that expectation as evidence that, oh, I'm not good enough. See? And so
Yeah.
we've got to kind of untangle that.
I want to ask you a question just around that topic, right?
Mhm.
Because when we think about that, the first thing that comes to my mind is, the 10x, the
Yes.
10x philosophy.
Yeah.
So it's become almost like an entrepreneurial culture to have these big, hairy, audacious goals,
Yes.
right? To set these as like, hey, I'm going to launch my first time launching ever. I'm going to aim for six figures. Or,
Yeah.
I've never done a webinar before. I want to get 1,000 people on there. And, do you feel like that 10x culture, that aggressive type of culture is really more harmful than it is helpful in this
I think it
context?
depends. It depends. Like if if you're someone who has And I know you're really big about this, like the experimental mindset, like you're comfortable with going out and trying things,
Mhm.
um and you're not going to, it's not going to crater you if you don't get the result you were going for, because you have that, if
Yes.
you've got that developed where you're experimental in it, and you know, like sometimes it's going to work and sometimes it's not, let's just try it, we'll never know till we try it. Those people can go set the big goal because they're not going to just rip themselves to shred if they don't hit it. They'll go, okay, I didn't hit it, but I learned XYZ from this. And, you know, they'll be able to stay in a resilient mindset even if they don't hit it, and they'll grow from that. So those people can do that. If you're more like how I have been in my entrepreneurial journey, like in early days, back when we first met, like in
Mhm.
2019, I was still very like, if I set a goal and didn't make it, I made that mean all kinds of disastrous conclusions. Like, I'm not
Mhm.
cut out to be an entrepreneur, or see, this is just proof positive I don't have what it takes. If you are in that phase with your own relationship with yourself and ability to handle failure, if you have a low failure tolerance, I think it's much more productive to set some realistic goals and get into a pattern of thinking that you can handle, like following through, taking a little bit of a risk, seeing what happens, and learning how to build up your failure tolerance,
Mm.
because failure is, it's inherent in entrepreneurship. You have to
Yeah.
have that experimental mindset. And I know for myself and for a lot of my clients, you know, we're never taught that in school. Like a lot of
Mhm.
my clients, they were the A students. They did great in school where it was very structured, and, you know, there was a right answer. In entrepreneurship, there's hardly ever, like, it's never that black and white, you know, right answer, wrong answer, best approach, not, despite all of the superlatives that get thrown around out there in the
Mhm.
coaching space. Usually there isn't a one right answer or one best way. It just
Yeah.
depends. And so building up your failure tolerance and being able to have your own back when you go try something and it doesn't work out is going to be far more useful in the long run than like, okay, we're going to set this big goal and get all like charged up and excited about it. And then you go out and you have your first failure and you're just devastated. And
Yeah.
that will like, yeah, because really success, the really successful people that we see out there, they have just learned how to fail faster. Like try
Mhm.
it, fail, figure out what doesn't work faster, and then get to what does. And
Yeah.
you have to have a really resilient mindset to be able to do that.
Yeah, I've heard a quote from, wasn't one a quote. I was watching the show Shark Tank, and Damon
Hmm.
John, one of the, founder of Fubu, and of obviously
Yep.
Shark Tank invested in anything. And he was saying that one of the reasons he's successful is that he moves from failure to failure like quicker than anybody else. Like if he fails,
Yes.
he gets down, he's getting back up so fast and moving on to the next, moving forward. He does it so
Yes.
quickly that he's able to move past a failure, doesn't stop him.
Right.
Um, and we see that to be true in so many, people who can get
Yeah.
a failure. So what you said to develop that failure tolerance, was that right? The failure tolerance.
Yeah, you've got to learn how to build up a tolerance for failure. And um that's not to be real Eeyore about things like, oh no, we're just gonna
Yeah.
fail. It's not like that. It's just, it's the difference between someone who can look at their numbers. Like, for example, for me, when I first started out, I hated doing my bookkeeping. Not be well, I didn't like the actual task of it, but mostly I avoided it because I didn't want to see the reality. In the early
Mm,
days, it was always like, oh, how far down did my bank account come this much? You know, when you're just learning how to get going. And there was no, I didn't know how to look at my metrics
Mhm.
when they weren't what I wanted them to be, and not make it mean this terrible story about me and
Mhm.
end up feeling hopeless and discouraged. And so now I can look at my metrics and go, okay, what can I learn from this? How can we, make some changes and do something different? And I look at it and I don't make it mean something about me and my inherent ability to be an entrepreneur. I just am like, okay, is this strategy working or not? And
Yes.
then you can make changes. And that's how you can move faster through all the trial and error we have to as entrepreneurs.
That's a great reframe. For everyone listening right now, I want you to like maybe rewind from the past 30 seconds and just really take in that reframe, and that it's not about you. Like, don't make it
Yeah.
about you. Like, yeah, you were the one who did it, thought of it, and got involved in it. But at the same time, like really have that separation of it, so it's not part of your identity, so to say. And it's really is the strategy, is that platform. It's not you just because
Yes.
you're not successful on Facebook, or and that's this is the platform. You may be awesome
Yeah.
on LinkedIn, it's one of those
Yeah.
things where it's just may not be the right area, so to say. It's like a plant that thrives in a certain type of soil or a certain type of
Right.
environment. A cactus is going to do better in a dry environment where you get a tropical fruit. It's going to need the humidity and the wetness in
Yep.
order to thrive. So really having that understanding, and that's really you actually answered my one of my next questions, is really just how entrepreneurs can maintain that positive mindset during business uncertainty and really or failure, and
Yeah.
really just working on building up a fail tolerance is really how you do maintain a positive
Hmm.
mindset, I believe. One of
Yeah.
my things that I do, and one of is the back pocket thoughts, and
Yep.
it's so ingrained in me now. I don't think of it like that anymore. It's just something like, whoop, I'm not thinking that. That's the wrong thought. Not
Yep.
judging myself, but just
Yeah.
like let me shift this,
Right.
because there's so much of practice of just pulling out the back pocket thought um when something comes up. So I
Yep.
hope everyone listening got that takeaway for the back pocket thoughts, because that's a pretty big one. So,
Yeah.
um, other question for you, because we covered the essential mindset shifts that really, and those are great. Like those that you gave. If anyone listening right now, take those and you'll immediately start seeing a difference practicing it. If you want a real difference, just contact Laura and work with her. That's going to take you to the whole next level. But even if you're not in that position to do so yet, using that alone can make a big shift. What, in your opinion, right? In entrepreneurship, especially if someone's working a 9 to 5 still and going into entrepreneurship, they kind of get double hit sometimes, right? You have the stresses of the
Hmm.
job plus the stresses of the entrepreneur journey. What are some daily practice or habits, maybe one or two, that you would recommend for entrepreneurs to do to strengthen their mindset?
Yes, I think that's such a great question, Arfan. I think one of the things that I found to be really helpful, and a lot of my clients have found to be really helpful, is make your decisions ahead of time. And what I mean by that is, as entrepreneurs going through our day, there's just lots of decisions to be made, and you can end up in
Mm,
decision fatigue really easily. Um, so if you'll make, like, I get up in the morning and I actually get my planner out and I use Google Calendar for my actual calendar, but I have a planner like that's analog. So I can sit there
yeah.
and kind of think through. And if you're really clear on having a clear goal that you're working on, and not 14 different goals, but
Hmm.
one primary goal in your business and one primary goal in your personal life, that right there gives you something to cite on and
Hmm.
decide today, what are the three most important things that I need to do to move the needle on that goal. And that just
Hmm.
clears so much of the clutter out. When
Hmm.
you have like
Absolutely.
15 priorities, you have no priorities. You've got to
Mm,
have like one place that you're heading to in a specific time period. So having an annual goal that break into the quarterly goals that break into a monthly goal. And then every day, I've got to do these three things to move the needle on my monthly goal. That will clear things up and get you out of a lot of decision fatigue.
mhm,
Putting things on your calendar phrased as results. This sounds real nitpicky, but it's a game changer for people. Like most people, when they're planning, they will put the action that they're going to do. Like, I'm going to prospect, I'm doing prospecting now. But if you have, our brains don't like vague general stuff. They want specific things that they know they'll be done at the end of that hour. So if you're, instead of writing prospecting for this 30-minute time slot, 5 prospecting messages sent is what you put on there. Your brain knows that, it's very clear, and it keeps you from spinning out and getting distracted and moving, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And it will, when you put your results on your calendar for specific time blocks, it allows you to be on to your brain when it's up in shenanigan mode and it's like trying to take you into procrastination. If you've got like that prospecting time block scheduled for, let's say mine was scheduled for 2 p.m. on Monday. 2 p.m. on Monday comes and you're off, I'm going to go to Starbucks now or whatever. You can be on to yourself, and it turns your calendar into a mindset coach there for you to go, hey, what are we doing here right now? Let's get curious. So daily sitting down and mapping out your day like that is a game changer, because you will start to see and hear the limiting beliefs that right now are just running non-consciously for you under the radar. And you don't even know, why did I not show up and do what I said I was going to do? This will be a game changer for you.
I'll give the audience one that I am the same thing. Obviously we worked as a coach. I mentioned that a few times. And if you're listening right now, book a call with Laura to have her be your coach. But we, instead of just putting grocery shopping down on the calendar, it's we fuel our bodies with healthy and organic and nourishing foods.
Awesome.
So just grocery shopping now. It's like, okay, do I choose a bag of apples or a candy bar? I'm gonna add both of them, but but at least you kind of get the balance in there, right? So and it's been really great to reframe. And as someone who's really struggled with health and weight and things like that over my course of my life, it's been a big reframe and a big change. And it's really, as time goes on, it's when I see that come up, I just automatically start thinking of, what kind of meals do I want to plan? And it's naturally to start thinking about healthy meals to plan versus like, I'll go and get KFC or something like that. Just those things have totally gone out the window. So that tip the Lord just gave everyone is pretty gold. Rewind again the next 30 seconds and listen to that again. So Laura, thank you so much. We're approaching time, and I feel like a time just kind of flew by. Just some real quick rapid fire questions, and we'll wrap up here. So to kind of looking ahead, and you're in this, you're coaching people, you're an expert in the mindset as a coach. What trends do you see emerging in the field of like mindset coaching for entrepreneurs? What trends are you seeing right now?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm seeing is it's becoming more common. A few years, even just a year ago, people would be like, mindset coach, what's that? And and now I think people are starting to talk about it. It's becoming more common to have in business coaching programs a mindset coach that's in there, because I think the business coach, like I do that as well. That's one of my things that I offer, is I provide contract coaching for other business coaches. And these business coaches are seeing the power of having, they teach the strategies and stuff, but if their people have mindset issues, they've got to have that addressed. So that's one of the trends I'm seeing, is more of the traditional tactic and strategy business coaches are bringing in mindset coaches to help their participants. And then they're getting much better testimonials and results for their, because their clients are able to actually go out and implement all the things they're teaching them.
That's very fruitful.
Yeah. I've seen scarcity the mindset trap of scarcity become, especially around financial scarcity, become more common here lately with as the economy has had some challenges
Makes
for
sense.
us.
Yeah.
I'm seeing that happen more. And so being able to get your mindset right around creating opportunity for you and making the most of the opportunities you have and not getting stuck in the scarcity trap is going to be something that's really important. It is important now. I think that that's kind of something I'm seeing more often.
That's a really profound reframe, actually,
Yeah.
to look at it in the lens of you're creating opportunity rather
Yeah.
than looking around at the lack of opportunity that,
Yes.
because your brain's going to find what you're looking for.
Yeah.
So, might as well
Exactly.
make it find what you want, really, that you're really going after.
Exactly. And you're going to feel so much more empowered. Like I'm really big about empowering my clients. In fact, my methodology is called the Empowered Transformation Accelerator method. Like we
Hmm.
can make fast transformation when you know what you can control and you keep your focus on what you can control and keep your focus off of all of the myriad of things that you really can't control. You can't control what other people are thinking, feeling, or doing, but you can control what you think, feel, and do. And you're going to just create so much more opportunity and traction for yourself when you keep your eyes fixed on what you can control.
Awesome. I love that. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Empowered Transformation Accelerator method? And also, in doing that, tell us what is the best way for someone to get a hold of you if they are
Yeah,
looking for a mindset coaching?
absolutely. So basically, my Empowered Transformation Accelerator, ETA for short, because that is a mouthful.
Yeah.
So the ETA method, it's 3 phases that I will take my clients through. And the first is you've got to gain awareness. So it's gain
Hmm.
awareness, build authority, forge achievement. You've got
Hmm.
to gain awareness about what you want and what's keeping you from having it now. And really that's where we really unearth where they're confused, where they're scattered, unfocused, and help them get focused. Build authority phase, that's the bulk of when we start working together. That's once we kind of assess where do you want to go, what's keeping you from getting there. Then we fill up your toolkit with lots of practical skills and concepts that help you build authority over your thinking, your emotions, and your behavior so you can show up better and make the most of your resources, whether that's financial, time, energy, whatever.
Hmm.
And then once you have that toolkit full of all these new skills and concepts, then we put you out there to practice them and go after your goal with a full toolkit. And you start to see that's where we start working on the experimental mindset and failure tolerance and go out there and like try something, come back, let's unpack it and debrief it. And
Hmm.
the kind of coach right now I do one-on-one coaching, and that's kind of the done for you model. If you're like used to talking to a service provider, they have
Yeah.
the DIY version, they have
Yeah.
the done with you and the done for you. And really when I'm coaching one-on-one, that's like done for you work, because I can listen to my client talk
Hmm.
and I see the things that we need to work on. So I'll pull that out and be like, hey, let's back up. You said XYZ, let's go explore that and help them reframe it. And so they're not trying to do that all themselves. So that's essentially, and it works like in a cycle, because once you have the awareness, you have built the authority, you have your full toolkit, and you go out and you start trying to achieve your goals, you then go back through the cycle. Okay, what do I now see that I didn't see
Hmm.
before? And you just spiral up instead of spiral out.
Yeah, I love that.
So,
Spiral up instead of spiral out. Awesome.
yes,
Um,
best way to work
how,
with me. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
we can't
Um,
forget that.
yeah, let me give you a link that you can go to, and I'll have some resources there for people. The best thing to do would be to schedule a call with me, because that allows me to do the done for you. I'll talk to you, we'll assess what your biggest challenges are, and then I can identify like a free resource I have that would be the best fit for you. So I would say let's make the link lauranaiser.com/ARFON. That'll be easy to remember. And
Awesome.
and then I'll just have a link there where you can either book a call with me. Yeah, book a call with me, I think, is the most productive way to get you the right resource.
That's perfect. Thank you so much for doing that. So that's lauranaiser.com/arfon. And Laura Naiser is probably easier to spell than Arfon, as ARFAN. So
Yeah.
um question for you, because you mentioned something earlier, and I just want to finish off with this, is going to be, how can someone recognize when they're truly doing mindset coaching and mindset work versus reinforcing a negative belief?
Mm.
If they're working
Your
with someone,
emotions.
or
Yeah,
okay,
how
emotions.
you feel. Because if you're are you talking about like if you're practicing an affirmation, how to know if it's a
Yeah.
good one to do?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you drop in, pay attention to how you feel when you say it. If and that's also how you can tell, like, is there something here mindset wise that I need to pay attention to? Most of the time, we're not aware of the thoughts, those sentences running through our head, but we know we're feeling some kind of negative emotion in a situation that we don't want to be feeling negative emotion. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you're consistently feeling discouraged, frustrated, behind, feeling like there's a lack of something, that's a good indication that you could benefit from mindset work.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Love that. Because the reason I ask that question is because there's lots of mindset stuff, like you mentioned. There's tons of
Mm-hmm.
different articles and YouTube videos, and you wake up and it's like mindset tip for the day, or listen to
Yeah.
this 15 minutes before you start your day. And and I've experienced that. Sometimes I listen to something and it's like afterwards I feel like crap. I'm like, well, I
Yeah.
feel like crap. I was
Yeah.
supposed to
If
be
you're
more
feeling worse
positive
after
mindset. What's going
trying
on
it,
here?
yeah,
So
then it's not a good fit. Yeah. And we
yeah,
need
and
to customize that for you.
yeah, and I can vouch for after every single one of our sessions when we worked together. Afterwards, I felt like $1,000,000. It was one of those
Yeah.
things where you just feel great. So again, visit lauranaiser.com/arfon, and you're gonna get an opportunity to book a call, some resources that'll be more beneficial and catered directly to you rather than just blanketed free
Yeah.
resources. So definitely achieve, get hop to that link. Laura, again, thank you so much for joining me today, sharing these
Okay.
drops of gems and drops of diamonds of wisdom. I know everyone listening is going to get a lot of knowledge and information out of it. And if you've enjoyed this episode today, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel, drop Laura a note. Even if you don't schedule a call with her, still follow her on social. I believe it's at Laura Naiser on Instagram, and you
Yep.
can find her on Facebook with just Laura Naiser. So just definitely follow her, be in her world, because you never know. Maybe 12 months later, you're gonna flashback to like, hey, everything that we just said today is popping up. And I just achieved, I felt pretty good, but now I achieved a certain level of success and this is coming up. And that might be the right time you need to have a conversation on a call with Laura.
Yeah.
So with that being said, thank you everyone for tuning in today. Hope you all have the wonderful rest of your day. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, to the show for future expert interviews. Thank you all so much. Have a great one.